First of all, we're delighted to say that we have been joined by the legendary tennis coach, Nick Bollettieri, who is always such a familiar face at these tennis events. And we love having you here on the Live at Wimbledon studio. Nick, you have coached so many fantastic tennis players over the years. I'm intrigued to know who you've got your eye on the closest at this year's Wimbledon Championships.
Well, you know, when you've been fortunate to be with so many people, I've learned to be very conservative in predicting. And the reason why I do that, sometimes a little thing can blow somebody up. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that happens. The night before they may have eaten something, or she may have eaten something. So you never know, because if we could predict the winners, nobody would go to sporting events. Yeah. But overall, no matter how hard you look, tough to take down the Djokovic. And I wrote an article and I said, in the past 60 years I've watched players, I've never seen a complete player that hasn't a weakness. He has no weakness. But when you're that good, you've got to play that good all the time. And that ain't easy, baby. Why? Because people want to become famous overnight, especially in the early rounds. And that's what happens. We saw that with some of the girls. 113th ranked girl beating a top seed a few years ago. Nadal went out the first round. So I believe the penalty of being good or being the best, you've got to play the best every day.
Well, talking of girls, one lady I want to ask you about who's been through your academy, what is now the IMG Academy, of course, over in Florida, is Sabine Lisicki. She's in action out on centre court. She's actually lost the first set 6-2 against Christina McHale. That's a bit of a surprise to all of us watching. We know Sabine's got such a strong serve. You look like you've got some thoughts.
She changes coaches more than I change wives.
Oh.
You think I'm kidding?
No way.
No.
Okay.
She does. And I think that's the problem. And what it shows is you can have all the talent in the world. You can have one of the biggest serves on the tour, forehands and backhands. But this man will tell you, if you can't hit the last ball over the net, as Borg said, that made him a champion, you can't be a winner. You have to have some defense once in a while. You cannot go for all home runs. You just can't. And I believe that that's what Lisicki lacks, is a mentality of how to build points rather than going for outright winners.
And do you think she could have achieved that if she stays with the same coach? I mean, I think the answer is yes, right? Because you then work on more than just your A game. You work on the B and C, and you learn how to win when you're not playing your best.
Well, Matt, that's the whole thing. That's what makes a champion. When they're having an off day, but the team and you have worked on how to get through those off days. You know, everybody can be a front runner, baby. I mean, it's easy. But I can't say it on television. When something hits the fan, that's when you tell if you're a champion.
And so, talking of champions, you've coached so many grass court champions in the past. One of them was Andre Agassi. We'll get onto some of his winning moments, I'm sure, in a little bit. But what do you think makes a Wimbledon champion? What are the skills you need to possess to really win here?
First of all, you have to adapt to the conditions. For instance, yesterday, a lot was made of the weather. Well, let me tell you something. The person on the other side has the same obstacle. And when you pay $2 million to get to a finals, baby, I don't care if it's snowing, rainy, or whatever it is, you play through it. But when you start saying, oh, gee whiz, it's so hot out there today, you're already building up an excuse. Whatever happens, you've got to go out and make it happen.
And how involved are you still with players nowadays? Just give us a bit of an idea of how you structure your year, how many tennis events do you go to?
What I do is this. The good players that come have their own coaches, and they come to me for a little tip. Boris Becker gave me a great compliment. He said, what makes Nick a genius is seeing a little thing, saying it in a simple way, and walk away. This year I'm going to do about 200,000 miles in a plane. I'm giving a lot of clinics, and last night I was honored to give a motivational speech to Goldman Sachs. Had about 350 people, and I told them how to sell short, how to sell long. But we had a great time last night. But I enjoy it, but being away from home is not as easy as it used to be. But I enjoy going on the road and learning. I believe when people say, I know it all, watch out. You never learn it all. And when you say that, it's time to go back to school. I'll be 84 next month. They made a serious mistake on my birth certificate should be 48.
Oh, yes.
But I believe that age is just numbers. It's how you feel inside as a person. It's being involved with people. And I believe being involved with children like I have been and people, that's what's helped me be excited and look forward to every single day.
Well, you've packed a lot into your years. When you talk about people that you've looked after and that you've worked with, I did just mention Andre Agassi. We can look at his winning moment here from 1992. You were, of course, in his box. When you look back at moments like this...
Wow. That's something you just can't believe. And when Goran missed that easy backhand volley, holy mackerel. And then he danced with Steffi Graf that night.
Oh, that's when it started, I think.
That's you remember? And lo and behold, he's now with Steffi. But what makes Andre special is what he's doing now with his chartered schools. Mm-hmm. He's providing opportunities for people. He got an opportunity, and there I am there with my, I don't think that those were Oakley, those were big Jones glasses at that time. But Andre was a character, but you know what? Tennis needs characters, too.
Absolutely.
It really does.
Well, who do you think is the biggest character in the game today?
Well, you know, Djokovic was for a while, you know. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But he's learned how to be a character in a much smoother way. And remember, when you're a character and you're polite, people take to you. When you're arrogant and you don't respect players, I can remember many years ago, Marco Estoya, in Orlando, Jim Curry is 17 years old. Marco called Jim up to the net. Pow! You're a wise little punk. I'll never forget that. So you want to learn to respect, and I think that's very important. Be a character, yes, but you got to respect the opponents. You got to respect the crowd, because you know why? Children are watching you.
Well, what do you make of Nick Kyrgios, who's one of the biggest personalities that we're seeing out here today?
Well, I was just interviewed by Australia because a few weeks ago I put something on my manager on Facebook, and he got back to me, and they just interviewed. He has everything working for him, but what he must do is what Agassi told a group giving a clinic in Long Island. They said, Mr. Agassi, what's the most important point? The next point. Kyrgios can't put that next point or the last point away. You got to look forward, put it aside. When I worked with Boris, what would Boris do? He'd slap his feet, let's go. But then he focused. Look at McEnroe, break rackets, the referee, but was he in control? You better believe he was in control. He was a great actor, man. But you've got to be able to control your emotions. And remember, when you're arrogant out there and you lose your temper, the crowd starts to go against you. So I believe that Kyrgios has all the things to make a tennis player, technically in the big weapons. If his mind catches up to his talent, he can be a dangerous player.
Why do you think that he comes from Australia, Thanasi Kokkinakis comes from Australia? Why are these guys not coming from America, with America having so many more people? What's happening to...
There's a very simple answer to that. When I ran the academy, I gave everybody scholarships. Today, the big, strong athletes are going to football, basketball, baseball. They see $36 million for the Heisman Trophy. Tennis in New York, just to rent a court, $150 to rent a court, a racket. So, when parents see this, they can go play the other sports that cost nothing. Mm-hmm. It's tough. The big athletes today, I think, have an advantage. If you look at the normal size today, except for Ferrer and Nishikori, they're all up 6'2" to 6'8". Imagine having LeBron James or Kobe Bryant or some of these soccer players who are going to play in the World Championship tomorrow. Too bad England lost. But you need the athletes. But you've got to fund them. And I'm happy now because Martin Blackman, a student of mine for 5 years, has just been made the head of development for the USTA. Oh. We got to bring the athlete, and you've got to support them financially.
Well, one American who is dominating the tennis world on the ladies' side, of course, is Serena Williams, and she has a chance to make history this year, Nick, going for the Serena Slam for the second time in her career, trying to match Steffi by doing the career Grand Slam. What do you make of her place in tennis history?
Well, first of all, I was fortunate to be part of the Williams team. when they asked me, Nick, were you the coach? No way. I'm part of the team. Why have they done so well? Because of the years that Daddy Richard and everybody said, he's crazy, get a coach. Well, he ain't done too bad for being crazy. And Mama supported. Those girls came up the hard way. And their daddy said to them when they were 7 and 8, are you listening to me, Venus? Are you listening? Yes, Daddy. Run for every ball. Because you have two sets of eyes, your eyes and your brains. When your eyes see and brains think, it's too late. Their daddy trained them, here, run. What place will she play? Kind of tough not to put her on top. And there's another reason. I'm glad she came up the hard way, man. The hard way. Didn't have a silver spoon in her mouth. So
I'm also intrigued to ask you about Jeannie Bouchard, who made a run here to the final last year, hasn't really necessarily been able to follow it up this year, crashed out in the first round at this year's Wimbledon Championships. Do you think she's learned from perhaps maybe too many off-court distractions since her run here last year, or how would you describe really what's happened to her?
There's a word called pyramid. The student's on top, the coach and his team is here, and the family's over here. If they don't work all together, it's a tough call. Me, I think I could relate to Bouchard. I could really relate to her. I probably would take her up to the children's ward up in St. Petersburg and let her see young boys and girls dying of cancer and say, young lady, you've been given a great opportunity. Take advantage of it. And it's not her game. And I don't know all the facts, but it's got to be things that are going through her mind that are probably distracting. But I would like an opportunity just to speak to her, because I've had all sorts of characters. It would be a shame. Imagine last year a finalist, this year going out to number 113th ranked player, having difficult. And also, I don't think I'd do too many more interviews. I would just keep my mouth shut and find out what's wrong. It would be a shame to lose her.
That's some really solid advice, Nick. Well, before we go, I must say congratulations, because you're going to become the first white man, I understand, to be inducted into the African American Tennis Hall of Fame back home in Florida. That must be an amazing achievement for you.
It is, because I worked very closely with Arthur. 1987 at the French Open, Arthur and I sitting in a bench. And he said, Nick, what are we going to do about the thousands of people who never get to hit a ball? Don't worry about it, Arthur. I'll take care of it. I started the Ask Bollettieri program in a tough city, Newark, New Jersey. Bob Davis was the director. As we walked into the park, police were guarding us. Arthur looked over his shoulder and he said, Nick, are we coming back? Yes. He said, if we don't, we can't give children false hopes. We ran that program for 13 years. And I believe being part of inner city programs has been a big part of my life. In my book, Changing the Game, was dedicated to Arthur and to Billie Jean, because what did they do? They tore down barriers to give opportunities to people.
Changing the game, that's certainly something you have done.
Brilliant.
Yes.
Nick, thank you so much.
Such an
inspirational figure in the world of tennis.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much for joining us. Nick Bollettieri with us here in the Live at Wimbledon studio.